Hi everyone, my name's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to give you guys a list of my favorite fantasy standalones. I always find that it is a little more difficult to find fantasy standalones because fantasy stories require a lot more world building and a lot of times are just long stories. They require multiple books. So finding standalones that feel like a good completed story can sometimes be hard. So I have compiled a list of some of my favorites. First up, I have The Princess Bride by William Goldman. This is a classic. Classic. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I actually didn't read the book until I think when I was in college. Just had never read it, but I'd seen the movie like a jillion times. So I decided to read it and the book is very cute. It definitely reads very fairy tale-esque, very Princess Bride. It's really good. It's kind of hard to describe. It's like this comedy fantasy about a woman named Buttercup and a man named Wesley, and they fall in love, but then Wesley has to leave. And then Buttercup ends up in this like adventure. I think she's kidnapped. I don't even remember all the details. It's been a hot minute. I'm sure you've seen the movie. Everyone's seen the movie. And if you have and you haven't read the book, I definitely recommend the read. It's actually surprisingly big. But still very cute. Next up, I have Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. This is a book that, again, I had seen the adaptation for first before I read the book. Amazon Prime did a 6-episode series about this book, and they actually just recently announced a season 2, which is maybe the greatest news I've ever heard in my entire life. So I'm very excited for that, needless to say. But this is also a comedy fantasy kind of book that is about an angel named Aziraphale and a demon named Crowley who must work together to stop the apocalypse. They're supposed to bring about the apocalypse, but both of them have gotten very comfortable on Earth and very much so like the lives they live. And so they kind of disobey their respective leaders, being God and the devil, and decide to try to put an end to the apocalypse so they can continue living on Earth. And it's just a very fun, cute book. And in the TV show, they kind of I don't know if it's just me wanting it to be this way, but they kind of make it feel like Aziraphale and Crowley should be shipped. And I'm ready to see if season 2, if they commit to that. I don't know. But regardless, even if they're not, their friendship is very sweet. And it is just a very funny, fun book. Very light read, so I definitely recommend it. Next up is a not so light read and a book that I think has caused some controversy in the book community. Not in a bad way, just in a I hate it or I love it kind of way. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This is much newer than the previous 2 books on my list. This one came out 2 years ago, I believe, and I loved it. So many people say that this book is just really boring, which I get. Not a whole lot happens. The plot is very slow. But the writing is very, very beautiful, and I felt like the character growth was just so good that I didn't care that the plot was slow. The end of this book had me wrecked, absolutely destroyed. I was sobbing. I really thought the epilogue was unnecessary. I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist because I didn't like it. But I really love the story. So it's a story about this woman named Addie LaRue who lives in France in the 1700s. And she is told that she is going to have to marry this man in her farm village kind of thing. And so she goes out into the forest and makes a deal with the dark gods to let her not marry this man. And as dark gods are wont to do, they misconstrue her words and make it to where no one can remember her. So she can interact with somebody, and then as soon as they turn around, they forget she exists. And so she lives this lonely existence. She's also immortal. So we kind of go back and forth between her in the 1700s and her throughout time, and then present day in New York City. And she meets this man named Henry, who has also made a deal with the dark god, the same dark god. And so he remembers her. He can see her and remember her and be with her. And it's this very touching, slow romance that is just really sad. And the ending is so sad. But I really loved it. V. Schwab worked on this book, she said, for like 10 years, and it shows. Like, the craftsmanship in the writing itself is just like so beautiful. So I highly recommend it. I'm sure you've heard of it, so you'll know if it's like a book for you or not, I feel like. But I think it is very much so worth the read. Next up, I have Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. It is a like very fairy tale-esque way of storytelling, which I love. I'm working on a May NetGalley vlog, and one of the books in that has a very similar storytelling fairy tale vibe, and I love that. I love the like dark, scary, surreal storytelling. So this one definitely has that. And it was the first Naomi Novik book I've ever read, and actually I think the only one. I think I haven't read Uprooted, I don't think. I think I would remember. I haven't read Uprooted. So this was my first Naomi Novik book, my first and only, and I really did like it. I love the cover. I think it's beautiful. And it's just this really interesting take on this tale. It's definitely like very different from the original story. It's just like loosely based on Rumpelstiltskin. But I really liked it. I won't go too far into it because it's very confusing. Again, like that surreal kind of fairy tale thing. But if you're into that kind of thing, this is a very good execution of that type of story. Next up, I have Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is a YA standalone fantasy. Margaret Rogerson also wrote Enchantment of Ravens, which is like a very small fantasy book that I thought was kind of boring. I think it was just too short for much plot growth. But this one is a little bigger. I haven't read it in a hot minute. I read this a few years ago, so I don't remember a lot of the details of the plot, but I know that there's like this woman who reads grimoires, which are like these books filled with like a dark magical energy, and then there's like a prince or something that like helps her. I don't remember all of the plot. It's got like spooky libraries and cool magic and a cute romance, and it's YA, it's a light read. I really enjoyed it. And it's a standalone. I mean, it's so hard to find YA standalones. It's hard to find adult standalones. It's just hard to find fantasy standalones, which is the reason I'm making this video. But I really like this book. I think that Margaret Rogerson is a very good writer, and I saw her at BookCon in 2019, and she seemed very down to earth, so definitely recommend this. Next up, I have Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is one of his standalones that is set in the Cosmere, which is his kind of like overarching story that crosses over multiple series, multiple books. And Warbreaker, I believe, is one of his earlier books, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot. The magic system is based off of color, so that it made the whole world very vibrant, and it was really cool to see some of those Cosmere tie-ins. And I think it's a good introduction to Brandon Sanderson. If you've never read a Brandon Sanderson book, it is a standalone, so you can take this one bite out of Brandon Sanderson and see, like, is this a author for me? And I think this book is just really interesting. We get to see a few characters, I believe, that are in different Cosmere books, but we also get a totally different magic system, and we get a whole new cast of characters, and it's just a really fun book. I really enjoyed it. I read it last year, I believe, and I thought it was fun. The cover is beautiful. It's a big book, so be ready for that, but it is worth the read. The last book on my list is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. This is a book I've talked about in multiple other videos, I believe. And this is a Asian-inspired fantasy book that is a standalone, but it is also self-published, which is awesome. We love to support an indie author. And this book follows two main characters. There's a few other POVs, but the two main characters are Mamoru, who is a young boy born into this very prestigious family in this Kaigenese empire. In this small town, there are these warriors that can use water magic and ice magic to battle. They're all like master swordsmen, master magic users, and it's just this really interesting tale of him being born into this very prestigious family and trying to like live up to those expectations. And then a young boy from outside of the town moves in and goes to his school and tells him basically that the government has been lying to this small town and things are not the way they believe. So Mamoru is kind of questioning everything he has been taught. And then the other point of view is his mother, who was once a master swordsman herself. She is not from this small town, and she, for her family, had to marry this man in this small town. So she had to give up her whole life of basically vigilantism. However, when their small town gets attacked and her family is put at risk, she must take up the blade again. And basically, this whole story is just so touching and unique, and it explores a lot of themes of like motherhood and family values and honor, and it is so, so beautiful. I read a lot of this on a plane, and I had it on my Kindle, and I was just like feverishly flipping through on this plane, like trying to finish it before my flight landed, and it is a really, really great book. I highly recommend it. Support self-published authors. May is also AAPI Heritage Month, so pick up this book this month. Like, what's holding you back? I know we all have huge TBRs, but slide this one in. It is incredible. So that is my fantasy standalone recommendations. It was honestly a little hard to curate this list because, again, there's just really not a whole lot of standalones. But these are all books I really love, and I owned a surprising amount of them. Normally in my videos, I don't own a lot of the books I'm talking about, so very cool that I got to actually use real books for this video. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know any good fantasy standalones that you know of, because I would love to try some out. I feel like I really haven't read that many just because there's so little. I know that I need to read Elantris by Stephen King. It is his only Cosmere book I have not read, and I just keep putting it off. I don't know why. I know it's like his first published book, and I guess that makes me scared, but I don't really know why. Like, I should just read it. And I know that's a standalone, so I already have that on my list, but if there's any other fantasy standalones that you can think of that I should read, let me know down below in the comments. And if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you would like to be notified when a new video goes up. Thank you guys for your support. As always, it means the world to me, and until next time, thank you.